All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lasting Mission podcast. As you know, Ray Whitaker, I'm going to be your host today. For the family of veterans or veterans themselves that are listening today, we got new polls up for you guys. So make sure you go and visit missionrollcall.org. Take those polls. Remember, we take your voice directly to government leaders to help inform and educate the decision makers, okay, up in Washington. So make sure you guys take a little bit of time to do that. I'm really stoked about today. As always, every time that we do this, because we get to bring on what I would call influential organizations and also leaders, that come in that are here to support you and support your families. I'm going to read this one because I don't want to mess it up because it's such an impactful organization. And I think you guys are going to agree as we go through this episode. This episode, we're going to be focusing on military families and an organization that supports them. Special Operations Warrior Foundation's mission is driven by a desire to honor the sacrifices made in service to our country by providing cradle-to-career educational support to fallen Special Operations personnel and spouses, as well as Medal of Honor recipients. Today's guest is Sean Corrigan. He's the Executive Vice President of the organization. He helps lead the charge for impact to their recipients. If you want to know a little bit about the organization, you can visit specialops.org or SPECIALOPS.org. So, Sean, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you, Ray, and thanks to Mission Roll Call for everything you're doing for our veteran community.
Absolutely. Well, today's about you, so we got lots of questions. Hopefully we'll get to the majority of them, but like with anything, there's a lot to get to, a lot to unpack with your organization. I did get an opportunity to kind of go through y'all's website. It was good to see, your board, the staff, your ambassadors, like you guys have, rightfully so, a lot of people that support the mission that you guys do so it's such an important mission. So let's kind of start there. Let's start with you. I would love you to introduce yourself and kind of talk about where you were prior to Special Operations Warrior Foundation and then kind of what you do in the organization now.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Yeah, I'm Sean Corrigan. I retired in 2018 as a colonel at 30 years. Out of the 30 years, I spent maybe 26 or so of those years in Special Operations community, in Army Special Operations, and then in Joint Special Operations. So experience with all the different services in Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, all the garden spots of the world. So it's a personal mission for me because I served with some of the parents of the fathers of the students we serve now, and in some cases I was there when they passed. So very personal mission to be able to give back to the community and to serve those families who literally sacrificed everything in their service to America through Special Operations.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you what's your role now inside of the organization, and kind of what do you do each day?
Right. So I'm the executive vice president, and in military terms, that'd be like the deputy commander. And my focus is sort of, I call it down and in on the education programs for the kids and the group of student advocates that work with the families and the kids, because literally every single student is an individual case and we treat them as such. Their requirements are our requirements. And then on the sort of business side, working with our department that raises funds so we can support those kids, and then all the accounting and everything else that goes behind it to make sure that we are fulfilling our stewardship duty to those who donate money to us to take care of those kids. We want to make sure that every penny is used properly, and we're doing everything we can in support of the mission, and that being support of those families.
Great. Well, I want to get into what you kind of started talking about, like kind of the programmatics, right, of what you're doing. Before we get there, let's talk a little bit about the driving force for the creation of Special Operations Warrior Foundation. Can you talk about the creation, kind of where it was at the beginning, and then now where it's at, and what you guys may be supporting from a programmatic piece?
Sure. So we trace our roots back to the hostage rescue attempt in 1980, April of 1980. So we're coming up on our 45th anniversary here.
Wow.
And that was the attempt in Iran to rescue the hostages who were being held at the embassy. It all ended at a place called Desert One. 8 airmen and Marines made the ultimate sacrifice, leaving behind 17 orphans. So the survivors of that mission, and we call them those who had the guts to try, got together and said, we're going to take care of these kids. They didn't necessarily have a plan or anything, but that was the beginning of what we are now. It started as the Bull Simons Education Fund, Scholarship Fund, and morphed in the 90s into Special Operations Warrior Foundation. And it became an education scholarship fund to make sure those kids of fallen special operations personnel got an education, had an opportunity to get an education. And it started with, in terms of eligibility, those special operations folks lost in combat. Then we expanded eligibility in the 90s to include those who died in training. And then the 2000s expanded it to the children of all special operations personnel, whether they're an operator, an enabler, support, who pass in the line of duty. And so that encompasses a lot. It encompasses almost everything as far as children fallen within Special Operations Command or anyone supporting Special Operations Command at the time of their passing. And over time, as our resources grew through support from all kinds of great people, we expanded the programs. It started just with college scholarships and then added other programs, preschool, unlimited tutoring, private school tuition assistance, and really we call it now cradle to career. And so, if a 2-year-old or newborn's special operations parent passes, we've got them from that point forward. Our youngest student is expected to be born in September. Father died in an accident, and in September, when that child's born, we're committed. The mom already knows about us, and from the time they're ready for preschool all the way through college graduation, we think 2047, 2048, we're going to be with that family, providing funding for education opportunities. And if that child has a learning disabilities, we're there to fund testing, executive coaching, whatever, unlimited funding for education purposes for students with learning disabilities as well.
Yeah, something interesting is I'm listening to you talk. There's when you think about organizations that do any kind of scholarship type programmatics, right, where they're doing it, most of the time they're not as connected to the individuals, right? So normally you'll submit something, it comes into an organization. That doesn't mean the organization is doing anything wrong. It's just that this is normally how it would work. For you guys, though, I feel like there's a difference, right? In most cases, the individual that gave the ultimate sacrifice, whether that's through, combat, whether that's through training, whatever that thing could be an accident, whatever those things are, when you guys are stepping in, 9 out of 10, is it somebody knows of that and they're bringing it to you guys? So it could be somebody outside of the family is kind of what I expect that you're going to say is, yeah. Is that kind of what's happening for you guys for most of these?
Right. So on the service members who die, U.S. SOCOM notifies us of that death. And as soon as the line of duty is established as line of duty, yes, we reach out to the family. So there's no application process. We reach out to the family and say, here's who we are, here's what we do. And all we ask is for, kind of basic information. How old are the kids? So we can tailor the education opportunities to each individual student is a discrete, unique case. It is literally, what does that child need? And we stay with them throughout, and as they grow, it becomes a real personal commitment. So it's not like $5,000 check goes out. It's whatever that school costs, tuition, room, board, travel, miscellaneous expenses. We've got 202 in college right now. That's 202 very unique situations.
That's right.
And doesn't matter if they want to go to an Ivy League school or if they want to go to a trade school and learn a trade. We're going to cover the entire expense of whatever career is their career of choice. That's the goal, is to get them to a meaningful career.
Right. Yeah. No, that's and I think that's the point of my question, is that connectivity. And I even noticed, because I've followed you guys for a long time, unfortunately lost friends, but one of the things I've noticed is that even after they've completed their, and they have connected into a career, which you guys celebrate, I think there's a celebration that's happening for each individual. Again, there's a connective tissue there between you as an organization and them. You're still actually connected to them years after the fact. Which is just such, it's sometimes it's the stuff that gets lost, right? It's even in the scenario we are now with war kind of coming down, you don't have as much going on. It's not talked about as much, right? That doesn't mean we still don't have service members out fighting the fight. It just means that we're not talking about it as much. So I applaud you guys for doing that the way you have, because it's a very personal time. And it's probably one of the hardest times it is the hardest time for the family, right? Is to lose any loved one, no matter who it is. So I appreciate the care and the effort that you guys put into it. And then of course your donors for taking the time to help fuel you guys so that you can adequately support it. So now when we talked about this initially, one of the other things that was added up there was not only for special operations, but there was kind of this inclusion of Medal of Honor recipients. And is that new? When did that kind of come in, and how does that work?
Yeah, that came in about 2020 and really came to our attention. Sergeant First Class Ron Scher, Medal of Honor recipient from Afghanistan, had retired, and he was working for the Secret Service and diagnosed with terminal cancer and passed away. Now, by our criteria then, it required an exception to policy, which was an easy no-brainer for the board of directors. That was automatic. And then we thought, wait a second, what's available to Medal of Honor recipients in terms of education for their kids? And a few states have a few things, but not much. And so the board decided, well, we're going to open this up to the children of all Medal of Honor recipients, whether they were special operations or not. We're already covering the special operations ones, but whether they survived the event where they were awarded the Medal of Honor. And so that was really spurred by the example of Ron Scher, and it was another no-brainer for the board to expand eligibility to include all those children. And literally, we still have some Medal of Honor recipients who are having kids. Great, they're part of the family.
Yeah, and so one of the things you said, there was like a business-based kind of comment, which is you identified a gap, right? Which is that's really how all nonprofits come. There's something that is not being taken care of, whatever the recipient. Doesn't matter if you're a military space veteran, if you're individuals, it just doesn't matter. you're identifying a gap. So another example of your expansion is based off of these gaps that happen, and then that connectivity really with the government and SOCOM is kind of a unique relationship. It's not that those relationships don't happen, because it is a natural in some spaces, but it is a little unnatural in some instances. But again, it shows that tight threaded group of, okay, service member, something happens. Okay, we now have a support system, because I think that's the one unique thing that SOCOM has done very well for the 30 plus years. It feels that we've had some sort of combat happening. They've realized that it's not the in-service things that are the hard parts. It's the after-service things, right? It's the disconnect, and then understanding we still have things to do, but we got to make sure that those that have been here in the past, and why I think recruitment and all of these things continue to be successful for special operations, is because the veterans that were in special operations in most cases are taken care of. Like there's somebody there they can go to, a care coalition, whatever. There's somebody there that they can reach out to. So the other, go ahead, Sean. Did you have something on that?
Well, yeah, that's an incredibly important aspect, the partnership, and really it goes all the way back to when General Doug Brown was the SOCOM commander, and this idea that we have special requirements, we have unique needs, and we need a system to take care of these operators who would put all this training and effort. It's a national treasure. We need to take care of that. And through General Brown, Admiral Olson, Admiral McCraven, every commander afterwards, to get this formalized and funded, this care coalition, this warrior care program, to really bring all these resources into focus and to be the referral service for all these requirements. It's a great model. Might be difficult to be scalable, to the size of all of DoD. When you're dealing with SOCOM, it's a finite number,
right,
but incredibly important to the families. And we're part of this network. So if one of our families needs something, has a requirement that we don't do, we either know somebody that does or the Care Coalition does. And so it's a great network.
Yeah. And it's such an impactful network. And I think we've got America's Warrior Partnership as one of our coalition partners, just internal to what we have. And that's how we, as an organization, we're a little bit different, right? We're focused on an unbiased, apolitical voice. We just deliver a voice. We have no opinion here. Veterans tell us or their families, we deliver it. But we do have a lot of folks that come in and say, hey, we need this support. And it's like, okay, perfect. Go to this, this group, because they have that connectivity, which is basically the Care Coalition, where they have all of these organizations that may be inside or outside, because that's the other unique part for, special operations is I know that I've actually had somebody go in, because I didn't know many years ago that wasn't a special operations person. I had no clue who to send. I just knew the Care Coalition. I'm like, hey, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, we got it. And literally, and I'm just like, so there is this idea that it's a segregated group and, you're not allowed it, but that's not what it is. I mean, you're missing the point of how the organization works, because you do care about everybody, but you only have resources for so much that you can do. Right. So it's such an interesting thing. One of the other things that I had also looked at was that you guys have extended support to the children of active duty special operators who have lost a spouse. Can you talk through that, or just kind of like what that portion is?
Right. And that was an initiative from our CEO, Major General retired Clay Hutmacher, and really all of us who have served in any capacity, inside or even outside the military, know that the spouse is a critical role. You can't do it without, if you have a family, you can't do it without your spouse being not only on board, but supportive. And, when a special operations service member loses that spouse, that's a huge hole. And there's no real, the VA has programs for warriors who die, but not so much for the spouses. But the requirement's still there. The child still lost a parent.
Yeah.
And so we opened up the eligibility aperture to include those children. So, for instance, if while I was active duty serving in any one of SOCOM's units, if my wife had died, my children would have been eligible. Thankfully that didn't happen, but it is happening. Every year we're losing spouses. And so we opened up the aperture, and that's another great thing about our board of directors is always asking, where are the gaps?
Yeah.
Within our mission for educating children of those who've fallen, and whether it's an additional education program like unlimited tutoring or private school tuition assistance or funding for those who are homeschooling. We've added all those things because the board is always asking that question. And our team that's working directly with the families are answering that question because they know it. They're asking, they're talking with the surviving spouses, the moms, and when the kids hit 18, they're talking to the kids, which, they're not kids then, but
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, they're
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
our kids.
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of expand the programs to meet the requirements. Like before COVID, we really didn't know how many folks were homeschooling. And then after
Right.
COVID, it was like more obvious, and how many were already paying for private school tuition assistance. And okay, we can help with that. And so that's a constant evolving. We sit down 3 times a year internally and, okay, how are we doing? Is there something else we should be doing? Are we keeping up with inflation, all that kind of thing, as far as the funding levels? So it's an ongoing introspective analysis of, are we doing everything we can within the space of our mission for these families that we're supporting?
Yeah, and and that kind of brings up I think the point for me, like that cradle to career, which you can see multiple times. You said it multiple times now. I saw it all through the website when I was reading through y'all's literature. What is the success that you're seeing from your seat of early age? And I know again, you guys have changed programs different ways, but what is the success for the loved one, the kid, the child, whatever that is getting the opportunity to go through this program? Because is there any kind of connectivity that's also happening on the backside with other children that have lost a loved one, right? So I don't know if you can kind of explain the importance of, think cradle to career, you just think the educational thing, okay, hey, we're just paying for college and that's it. I would love to explain the benefits of really what you've seen, because I know we haven't always done this, right? Like this is not something that we did right. I mean, we learned from our lessons. We didn't do it right, we'll say 30 plus years ago, because we didn't have you guys supporting everything. But now that we are, what are those successes? What do they look like? And what are you guys learning from that?
Right. No, the whole, for those who initially started with cradle to career, they'd be maybe 3rd or 4th grade, 4th or 5th grade by now, just from when we started. But the whole idea is build success from whenever they enter, because they enter the foundation at the age they are when their parent passes. So some are newborns, some are already in college. So the idea is just give them every opportunity to be all they can be. I'm
Sure.
old Army, so that's what I
I
still
could tell.
go with. Be all you can be. Yeah. But one stat that jumps out at me, and it's quantifiable, but not necessarily anything we hang our hat on. You got a group of kids who are already arguably at risk. They've had a significant emotional trauma in their life, losing a parent. And we're still 10 to 15% every year above national average for high school matriculation to college. And then within college, a good 20% ahead of national averages for graduation. And, that's kids who have lost a parent. And a lot of times in a single parent family, sometimes they remarry, which is great. But a lot of times it's a single parent family and who lost their main source of income. So it's tough sledding. And for those kids to be able to, us to help them to self-actualize and move forward. Another great program that we have, which is it's a program where we invite high school rising juniors, rising sophomores sometimes, to Tampa. This year we're doing it at University of Tampa. We've done it or this year we're doing it University of South Florida. We've done it University of Tampa in the past. But we bring these high school kids together from all over the country, because the families are around special ops bases, but sometimes they move back to wherever their families are.
Right.
Bring them in from all over the country and spend a week talking with them about how to pick the right school for them, whether it's a big public university, small private school, trade school, and then how do you set yourself up for success to get into that school? Now and then some other things like basic personal finance, basic social media, things like that. But the main thrust is thinking about what school is right for them, and then the application process of how you get into that. But within that whole dynamic, you get all these kids who share something in common. They've all lost a parent.
That's
and
right.
some of them don't know anybody else like them besides maybe their siblings. But
That's
you
right.
bring them all together, and it forms this really cohesive group that have shared experience, and they can share their experiences. And it's just it's a great thing for us. It's like our Super Bowl, Daytona 500, World Cup, all wrapped up into one in 1 week in the summer. And so there's additional benefits beyond just you're more apt to get into the school that you want to get into.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tangible. We talk, a lot here because as part of what we do, we see a lot of the issues that we already knew, right? So like with the transition and all of that, and when you transition, you lose a tribe, and it's not much different here, but there's a trauma that occurs, and then you're always looking for connectivity with somebody. Normally, for military service members, it's that we both serve, so once you become a veteran, it's like that's the first kind of, okay, you're like me. Like, right, we have something that we can talk about that's there. It's really hard for somebody that's had something like this to allow anything else to bubble to the top, because that top bubble is most of the time going to be the parent that they lost. So having something like what you're talking about, you're now creating that tangible, that thing that you just can't, that sometimes people don't understand how important it is just to have other people that understand you, that you can have a conversation with, that's outside of going to somebody to talk to that may not understand, they weren't there with you, or they didn't see those things. So I love that you guys are doing that. It's such a powerful thing. And it's what we spend the majority of our time with veterans, helping them try to understand. Get a tribe, man. Find somebody. Like motorcycles, go find people that ride motorcycles, man. You like to hunt, go find people that hunt. Just do something. Don't sit in your house, because, good things never happen when you're just sitting around doing things, because your mind starts to think. So I'm glad you guys do that. So we understand the educational side of this. Did you have something, Sean?
Yeah, earlier you brought up the kind of enduring relationship with the students after they graduate. Part of this college prep program that we run every summer is graduates, sometimes very recent graduates from the foundation, come back and serve as mentors. So they'll mentor a group of 4 or 5 students, and they have something in common too. They lost a parent as well, but they also, hey, look, I made it through school. I got a job. And this is my career.
Right.
And then, kind of the nitty gritty of getting into school. And when you get to school, how's that look? All that sort of thing. But, and they're close enough in age. It's, more akin to an older brother or sister than, but frankly, I'm old enough to be some of their grandparents at this point, so, but, it's really, really powerful, and a way for our graduates to give back, and every year they do that. So it's really powerful.
Yeah. It's the hope, right? It's the, I did it, so can you. I mean, that's such a powerful driver for, I think, people just in general, to know that you can do something because somebody else has done it. So that is awesome. I love that about, that was one of the things that I saw. I was like, oh man, I've got to bring this up, because it's such an interesting thing, a good thing that you guys do. So we talked about the educational parts. We understand that, that cradle to career, kind of what you're doing, right? Different avenues, the different folks that come in. One of the other things that I kind of read through on here was like financial assistance, and, the support to different things based off of. Can you talk a little bit about that financial assistance? Why you do it, who you do it for, and then any programmatics that are there.
Sure. And, this is another program. It's a second mission. We have the education mission, and that's by and large the main effort. So the supporting effort is immediate financial assistance to severely wounded, ill, or injured special operations personnel. And this came about in 2006 because the board is always looking at, okay, where are gaps? What can we help with? And, 2006, sort of in the middle to beginning of the surge in Iraq and still fighting in Afghanistan, losing a lot of folks, or also a lot of folks getting severely wounded and ending up at the regional base in Landstuhl for significant amount of time until they could be safe enough to be transported back. A lot of time at Walter Reed, and unfortunately some at Brooks Army Medical Center in San Antonio for the burn victims. But the need that was identified is, okay, these service members are being taken care of, but what about the family? How do they keep connectivity? How do they afford to go fly to Germany to be by their loved one, especially if it doesn't look like they're going to make it back home? So we began with a $2,000 stipend, and it's really, in 2006, it was a check to the service members' immediate next of kin, so they could, and with no strings, just here's a check, you do what you need to do with it. So if that meant plane tickets or flying grandma in to take care of the kids, or putting the dog in the kennel while you go off to Walter Reed for a week, and it grew, and we increased it over time to $5,000 per event, to $6,000 just this past year. Just inflation, cost of living, all that kind of thing. But and we expanded the eligibility for that from combat wounded to injured, training injuries. Some of those are pretty horrific, and the recovery time is long. And then we expanded it also to illness, because some of the cancer treatments and things like that away from home base can be measured in months, not weeks. So we expanded that out to try to ease that financial burden on the families in places where the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, are not authorized to do it. DOD doesn't have a mechanism to do it. And, so that's something that we can do to help out those families. And, if they're in the hospital for a long time, like, again, measured in months, multiple months, we'll just send them another check. It's to try to keep that family focused on the recovery of the service member and not have to worry about the financial drama that comes along with that.
Yeah, and I think it's important, for somebody who hasn't lived through that, right, that may be listening, they may not understand, because it's really easy to go, well, they're a service member, like everything's paid for, like you're good. So I would love, Sean, like to just talk through that. You hit on it a little bit with like plane tickets and stuff like that, but there's a lot of expenses that, DOD, like just things that are not going to get paid for. And it's why you guys are providing that assistance. Can you just give an example of that? Like, hey, here's just one example of what I'm talking about, the expenses that a family could have if this happens.
Right. So we had a helicopter crash year and a half to 2 years ago now, in combat theater. And thankfully everyone survived. Don't know how, but they did. But 3 service members had significant brain injuries. And the best facility, by the medical opinion, was to bring them here to Tampa to the James A. Haley Polytrauma Unit Veterans Hospital instead of a DOD hospital, Veterans Hospital. Well, that's a long way from Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
That's
and
right.
You're talking about a recovery that's literally measured in 6 months at a time. So family is homeschooling, and, you have the choice of don't see dad for 6 months, or they can come here and like the Fisher House is going to take care of them that way. But other expenses, just living expenses, being away from home. And again, other examples of, I want to go see my husband before he passes at Landstuhl. Well, who's going to take care of the kids? You got to bring somebody in for that. And so plane tickets for grandma. And, you got to you got to cover the bills, and or a spouse who's working. Okay, I want to be with my spouse as they recover. I got to take unpaid leave.
That's right.
Who's going to cover that gap? So those are all, kind of specific examples that we've seen in the past of where that money goes.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. So it's just making sure that everybody listening understands there are the tangible. I mean, there's just the cost that you have to pay, driving from Fort Campbell or taking a plane that costs money. And that's an unexpected, you're always told to have a little bit of emergency funds in the bank, but nobody thinks about the emergency being a loved one getting into a serious helicopter crash and then 6 months away, and then you're trying to figure this out, and you still have to kind of live life. And so I think you sum that up exactly right. There's a lot of these things you can't prep for. You don't know what's going to happen. So I know you guys are deeply committed to not only the families but also the legacy of our fallen warriors. Can you talk through what you guys are doing for that, honoring the legacy of our folks, through their families and just in general?
Sure. Yeah. And, one of the things that we also have we call it college to career program and some other partnerships. But one of the things that we try to do, we don't do it with the high school kids, but we do it with the college age kids who are about to graduate.
Right.
We'll take them to the SOCOM Memorial. And,
Right.
A lot of them, virtually very few of them, have ever been based at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, where the U.S. SOCOM headquarters is and where the memorial is. So most of them have never had an opportunity to visit the memorial,
Right.
see their father's name up on the wall, and kind of I won't call it closure, but see that and understand that people are remembering. The name's there, the name is set, and through our social media, we try to memorialize those folks too by telling the success story of their kids. That in 2006, Sergeant First Class Jones, fake name, but Sergeant First Class Jones died in OIF. Well, now his daughter is graduating with a pre-law degree from this school. And, so it's when the service member dies, and we've all been to the ceremonies where you go to the memorial ceremony, the name goes up on the wall, the gold star, and you pay your respects. But the next day, the unit has to move on. Whatever unit you're in, especially if it's, when you're in constant combat, you got to refocus on the job. Well, sometimes those kids are I'm seeing kids come through now through this college prep course. I served with their dads. The last time I saw them, they were, toddlers or little kids.
Right.
And as the name went up on the wall, and now they're about ready to go to college. And, it gets real personal when you knew the dad, and especially with the boys, some of them look exactly like their fathers. So, whoa, that gets really personal. But it's that commitment. The military is very, very good across the board at honoring the fallen. But for the families, that's like day one of the rest of their life. And right. And so we're trying to honor their sacrifice through the success of their children.
Well, good. And I'm going to put you on the spot here. And it's going to be hard for you because I don't think that you can tell me a story, because then you're picking one over the other. But I would love if you have a success story of any of the students that you're proud of. You want for them.
Yeah. And I'll caveat it by saying I did not personally know the service member, but he's kind of a legend, and a lot of people know his story. It's a SEAL named Adam Brown, overcame a lot of adversity in his own life to become a SEAL. And then once he was a SEAL, overcame some significant injuries that would have stopped most people, wounds and injuries that would have stopped most people in their tracks. And persevered, and then he was killed in combat. So his daughter just graduated from undergrad, and now she graduated like a 4.0, just rock star student, and now she got a full ride scholarship to law school, and so that's one example. But I'm just as proud of the SEAL whose son went to underwater welding for his career.
That's right.
And
That's right.
He's doing great things in that world. So
Yeah.
that's the idea, is just get them to something that's meaningful to them, so they can self-actualize and really honor that sacrifice by providing all the opportunities possible to that child/student.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can somebody's listening, general public, veterans, family members, businesses, how can they support you guys? What's the best way to get involved, to give back, so that we can continue to push through that legacy for those that you guys honor?
Well, I would say our website's a great place to start, and that's www.specialops.org. And you can look at the different things going on. There's events all over the U.S. Literally, we're blessed to have a lot of folks all over the U.S. working hard to support our families. So there's events out there. You can volunteer, you can participate. But I would tell you one thing is tell the story. The website's a great place to start. And as I said, we have events going, pretty much all year long, all around the country. A lot of them are focused kind of nearby special ops bases, but some are nowhere near, like Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. There's no special ops anywhere near there, but there's great American patriots up there who want to do something for the community, and they do every single year.
Okay. And do you guys have because I heard you say volunteer. Is there an ability for folks to come in to help mentor? Is there some sort of mentor program or anything that you guys do at these events?
There is. And the college to career, that's one opportunity. And we have a lot of folks come and help with that. Because in the college to career program, you're talking about getting them ready to apply for jobs and that kind of thing. So mock interviews, resume prep, cleaning up social media, all that sort of thing. And then internships. That's a huge thing, because some schools or some colleges and universities are better than others at providing internship opportunities. But that is not to be underestimated, how important it is to get out there, try a job within your career field. And sometimes it's just as important to figure out what you don't want to do as what you do want to do. But
that's right.
Internships or even job shadowing for a day or two. And so all those are opportunities that, we welcome any help in offering, or even, career advice. Okay, I want to be a lawyer, and talking with a lawyer about what really is that? Is it like on TV or no? Or any other job, electrical engineer, you name it.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. How do you see, just kind of like one final question, because you brought up another point. How do you see your mission expanding, maybe over the next year or two, supporting special operations community?
Well, we can already see the expansion because of the sort of increasing the aperture on eligibility. The numbers are growing, and we know that. And what we can't predict is major increases due to a regional or a general conflict. All the actuarial data goes out the window if we get into a fight somewhere. And we did see that during the 20 years of Iraq, Afghanistan combined. So we're always prepared for that in the back of our minds. But in terms of expansion of programs, there will always be incremental changes to funding by virtue of inflation and things like that. We relook that for things that are capped, like preschool and private school tuition assistance. We've capped our contribution to that, but we always reassess that. But others, like college funding, that's unlimited. Wherever you get into, that's what we're paying for. So that will expand just because we'll have more kids in college, and college expenses are bound to go up. But in terms of additional education programs, our Students with Disabilities program is growing because more parents are opening up to the possibility that their student might need some testing, might need some additional tutoring, that kind of thing. So I do expect that to continue to grow as well. And the wounded, ill, and injured, that program, we're happy with the way that's structured. And again, we'll just kind of keep track of the expenses. And, if it's costing people more than what we're providing, we'll look at that.
Okay, that's great. So as always, looking for those gaps. And that's one thing I appreciate that you guys are doing. If there's one key message that you could leave, with the listeners or those that are viewing this on YouTube, what would it be about the organization or just in general?
Oh, in general, I would say very, very grateful. America in general, and by and large, vast majority of Americans are very patriotic and grateful for the sacrifices of these service members. I would say keep in mind, every single one of them has a family, whether they're married and have kids or not. They leave a family behind, and the impact of that loss is on the entire family. So our focus is on trying to honor that sacrifice by supporting that family that's dealing with that loss, forevermore. And so I would say my message is just very, very grateful for honoring the fallen, but keep in mind that there's an entire family that should be honored as well, because they didn't choose to serve, but they certainly sacrificed.
Yeah, they served in their own way. That's 100%. So great. Well, Sean, I appreciate your time today. It's an honor to get an opportunity to speak with you. Organization, from the time that I heard about it decades ago until today, continues to do great work supporting special operations service members and their families in general. I don't follow very much, the funny moment, I don't follow very much on Facebook and stuff, like I'm not so regular pages, I don't follow them. I do follow your page. And part of that reason is because, the families, I saw the push through of somebody that I knew and their kid. And it's just like, wow, man, they didn't forget, never forgotten is not just a slogan, for me and for you. And I think for most military folks, like we believe in it, right? Like we consistently, you're always thinking about those. So I think your message is great. And I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to come on here. Is there anything else that you wanted to put out or any information that you wanted for the general audience?
I just want to say thank you and Mission Roll Call for everything you're doing. It's an incredible service to the veteran community, and, keep at it. Keep at it. We love it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. We're here to amplify, so we'll just keep doing the best we can. All right, Sean, thank you so much. For those that are watching the video, we appreciate you guys being here as always. And for those that are listening to our voice, hope you guys had an enjoyable thing. Remember, like, subscribe, and comment, right? Sean needs to hear your voice. If you have ideas, somebody that wants to get involved with their organization, do us a favor, let them know, right? You can also go to their website, specialops.org, and get involved there. As always, we'll see you guys on the next one.